Okay, so just leave it there.
Okay, and that's where the questions are going to pop up there?
You'll see questions, okay. But yeah, if you look, we're on Facebook.
Wow. Well,
say hi to Facebook world. Hopefully people can hear us. Anybody out there in Facebook world, let us know.
WSOC TV, Severe Weather Center 9,
turn my volume down.
Turn it down.
Yeah, we're going to heat up in the mid-70s and showers and storms will redevelop as we head through the day. The flash flood watch continues.
Tell me when it's
all right,
good.
guys, get ready. Bikes are going home now. All right, guys, get ready. Bikes are going home. 5 seconds.
Good morning and welcome to another installment of our show Recovery Talk here in the High Country on WATA 1450 AM and 96.5 FM. Today we have some special guests with us. We have Krista Keller and Lindsay Silcox that are working with a women's program here in the High Country called Carries Home for Women. And we're excited to have them here today to help us field questions and just become part of the conversation about recovery that's going on here in the High Country. First, I wanted to start off the show by just letting the people in Watauga County, especially our county, know that our hearts and prayers are out there for all the damage that's been going on with all the rain. We heard of the report. I actually had a call from Florida this morning because we made national news about a mudslide today, and I've heard that 2 people lost their lives in it. So our hearts and prayers are out there for people that are being harmed by the mudslides and whatnot. But welcome, ladies. Say hi to everybody. The mic's hot. You can hear.
Hi, this is Krista Keller.
Hi, Jim. How are you doing today?
Good. So if you wouldn't mind, I thought maybe it'd be good to start off by just kind of introducing yourselves and maybe giving a brief, a little snippet on why you're interested or why you are involved in recovery here in the High Country.
This is Krista. I'm on the board of Carries Home, and I actually started becoming interested in recovery here in the High Country because of jail ministry. I go every week to visit the women at Watauga County Jail. We have Carries Home has been in existence for almost 3 years now, and at the moment we're developing our transition program. We have 4 beds available for women who are in transition in recovery, and we're working renovating another building where we will have 5, possibly even 6 beds to add to that to make a total of 9 or 10 beds. We have a counselor, we have mentors, we have Bible study, we help women get jobs, we help women with transportation. Lindsay, help me out here. Anything else that you can think of that I haven't mentioned?
Well, we just are working hard to encourage them to get back into society, become productive. First and foremost, to stop abusing themselves and get back to the land of the living, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lindsay, why don't you tell everybody how you got involved with Carries Home and in recovery in general?
Well, in recovery, I myself am a recovering addict, so that is pretty much the forefront of my life. It has to be, or I don't really have a life. So then came along Carries Home. John and Michelle, the founders, actually got with me and asked me if I was interested in getting some experience with working with the women at Carries Home because of another project that I'm working on with a few people. It's going to be a 12-step based women's recovery home, and it just offers more variety. So with working with Carries Home gives me the experience, and I'm getting a lot of just time with the women, getting to know them, getting to see how it is to work with quite a few women at once, learning what their needs are, just kind of observing how they are in a communal living type setting. And, I'm real blessed to be able to just kind of witness their transition process, into a spiritual life.
Yeah, and part of their transition process, the Carrie's Home is faith-based, and I don't even know if I mentioned that to begin with because it's such an integral part of Carrie's Home. But yes, we do go to church, and we have Bible study, and we have devotion morning and evening, and we try to lead women to Jesus and put all the information in front of them, and then Jesus does the hard work.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. It certainly does. I don't know. It feels kind of hard some days for me.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies. We want to let everybody know on in Facebook world and even on air right now in the surrounding community that we're available for call-ins today. The phone number, unfortunately, I'm still working out kinks here, is posted on our Recovery Talk website. Maybe our show producer can write it down for me. But we also are taking questions right here on Facebook Live. That phone number is 828-262-1567. That's 828-262-1567. So give us a call, and this show is for everybody. You don't have to be somebody that is actively using or in recovery themselves. We want to talk to family members. We want to talk to anybody that wants to join this conversation. Folks, this is an epidemic in this country, and in my experience, the conversation needs to happen because there isn't a solid answer when it comes to the professionals. Now, the three people sitting here today, we all have a foundational answer, and we found a relationship with God through Christ. But in general, most people are being affected by recovery institutions here. Like I said in the last show, $38 billion industry that, in my opinion, a lot of times is kind of like stabbing in the dark. They're trying out all kinds of new stuff all the time, and I'm not saying one thing works and one thing doesn't, but we'd like to hear about what is and what isn't working. We want to be part of the conversation. We also want to, I want to give a little report on how excited I am about the response from the first show. Our video has been seen by, before coming in, 1,832 people from show one have viewed, at least click play. I don't know if they watched the whole thing. They could stand me for that long. But we had at least 1,832 views from show one, and we had almost 200 likes on our new page. Go to Facebook and look up Recovery Talk and like our page, and you can join us anytime. And right now I have the page up in front of me, and I'm watching and looking for questions. So we're getting close to a break here, and I have a couple questions that had been fielded from last time that I promised the people that wrote them that I'm going to address on air, and we're going to get some input from Krista and Lindsay if they would be happy to share it with us. But in the meantime, call your friends, call family, get on Facebook, pass the word around. We want this page to grow. We want this show to grow. We want to be, like I said, having a conversation about recovery in this country. It's starting right here for us in the high country, but it needs to be a broadcast everywhere. Oh, the number again is 828-262-1567, 828-262-1567.
Your insurance agent.
All right.
When they call
Good job.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Andrea Finney at Statewide Insurance Solutions.
So what is it? Is this in?
Just leave. Yeah, these are just questions.
Butts, you're doing good.
I've got to pee. How long do we have?
Prescription drug plans. As professionals,
Mr. Kelly, how long we got? She needs to go to the raspberry from
You can come back in. Just do what you got to do. Don't worry about it. You got 2 other people here. She's cool.
Okay.
You know where the restroom is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Don't yes sir me. It's just Mike.
All right, Mike.
Outdoor and Travel Outfitters is the place where a highly trained outdoors person works with you to select
What kind of
items
questions
for
do
your
you have
adventure with
from the
top-of-the-line
list?
clothing and gear, and knowledge of local hiking trails.
First one I was going to start off with how a simple surgery can start you on a path to addiction. It only took 1 pill for me, and I thought I thought if 1 can make me feel that good, 2 would be even better. That's all it took. 22 years later, I'm finally back.
Wow.
You'll be glad you did.
There's an enemy out there, and the enemy is need. I'm Fred Bowles.
You're inside 2 minutes.
Inside 2 minutes, okay.
And I see that need every day in the eyes of too many high country children. Many of us wouldn't miss a $5 or a $10 bill out of our wallet. But it might be the $5 or $10 that meets a family's needs. That's why we're launching our High Five initiative, asking everyone to give a little and help a lot. Every dollar we collect stays in the high country, helping your friends and neighbors. So check it out.
And it's not like, obviously I'm totally faith-based, but this is, I want to try to get as broad of an audience as possible. I want people that aren't necessarily coming from that to be comfortable calling in and sharing experience.
To help meet the unmet needs of our neighbors. And another high five to Farm Bureau Insurance of Avery and
Okay, you've got 1 minute 2 seconds. 60 seconds now.
Okay.
Guiding principle that drives Army National Guard soldiers to be always ready whenever disaster strikes. Every Army National Guard member.
Here's one from Terry. Hi, Terry. We see your question. Another mom.
Okay.
I don't see the questions. Where's the
You
question?
gotta click on the video,
I'll click on the video.
and you'll see them.
Since the early days of our republic, the Army National
Turn your volume down.
30 seconds from the mark. I'm going to put these mics, when I put these mics hot, you're going to have 10 seconds. I'm going to give you the countdown with my hand.
Okay.
For family, for community, and for country.
Okay.
Selfless service. It's what inspires the men and women of the Army National Guard to be part of something greater than themselves. To learn more, log on to nationalguard.com.
Just got done with work, probably
From Stephen and I watching live from
Northern Virginia.
Okay, we're back. We got a couple questions, like I said, from the last show, and it looks like I'm getting some response on the Facebook page too. But I had this one from Gary Robinson, and Gary, I knew Gary years and years ago. He's a commercial fisherman down in Florida, and he actually took me fishing. He told me I caught him a $300 grouper once, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but his question was how he wanted us to discuss how a simple surgery can start you on a path to addiction. It only took 1 pill for me, and I thought if 1 can make me feel that good, 2 would even be better. That's all it took. 22 years later, finally, he's back. He's sober. So have you guys had any experience or any conversations with any people? I have an opinion about everything, so I always like to let other people go first because I'll just bogart the whole conversation. I don't want to do that. So, Gary had a back surgery, took a pill, made him feel great, took another one, and next thing you know, he's in the bondage of addiction.
Well, it's my story is very similar to that. I actually was hurt. I have a herniated disc in my neck, and I have some lower back problems. And I got threw off a horse when I was about 16, and that's what started it. And then after that, I just kind of consecutively kept hurting myself. You know, I was drinking and doing all that stuff, but I hadn't really become like a slave to anything. And so that's exactly what happened. I got a prescription of pain pills. Mine was some hydrocodone, and I was off and running. It did not take long for those pills, opiates of any kind, to grab a hold of me. It, was very euphoric and made everything seem better. And so, of course, already being sitting duck for addiction, I believe that I, was born with it. It was there, present, and that was definitely supposed to be my path. So I took off and was off to the races. And the physical withdrawal from opiates is what kept me enslaved to that. And oftentimes I had wanted to stop long before I ever actually did. And the reason why was because of the physical addiction.
So you brought up a lot of little interesting points when it comes to this discussion. First, and maybe Krista, you can actually say something about this. Krista, you were in the medical field for how long?
30 years.
30 years. Okay. So one of the big arguments is like, we don't want to demonize people that actually need these medications, right? And there are thousands of people that go into and get treatment in some kind of doctor stay or whatever, surgery, whatever, and they take these medications, they walk out, and they never think twice about it. They won't become opiate addicts right after that. So why? And I think this has a lot to do with what Gary's question is. Why do people like myself and Lindsay, my history is serious opiate pain medication also. Why is it that we go off to the races and do what we do? And you guys tell me if you identify or follow what I'm saying. This is the way I like to explain to people, because people always want to know this question. They're like, why? Because it becomes so irrational. And I think Lindsay makes a good point. Once you get in it, you have to keep doing it because you're sick if you don't, and you'll do anything not to be sick. But why does a person plunge themselves into this thing? And this is what I explain to people. Try to think about a very, very good memory, a very good accomplishment in life. Okay, try to think about a very fond time of something that you can recall in your memory, right? And I always try to encourage people to do that. And maybe at the birth of a child, or graduating college, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I tell them, I ask them the question, where do you think that feeling comes from? And it's always funny because everybody gets very philosophical at this point. Yeah. They're like, well, and they tell me about, and that's all part of that feeling, I understand. But I make the point, that feeling is an actual chemical reaction going on in your brain, okay? And this is where, I invoke God. I think God gave us this gift in our brains, in our lives, right? So like when I pursue a career, or I pursue education, or I pursue life, and I accomplish things, it feels good to reach an accomplishment, right? And this is a good thing that we have. But scientifically, these are neurotransmitters and pathways and dopamine and all this stuff flooding in your brain, and it gives you a feeling of euphoria. So put a person that hasn't had much success in life.
Right.
Put a person that's had a mundane life, maybe had a lot of failure in life, okay? And you give them this medication. Now, this is the tricky thing about it. That medication almost mimics the same chemical reaction in your brain that these other things do. So I feel really good. So I try to tell the person, say your life was really terrible, right? And I was able to wrap up your fondest memory of life in a little bag and give it to you anytime you wanted to. Wouldn't that be very attractive?
Sure.
Now, let's add the fact that after doing it for a little while, you need it, or else you'll be sick. What do you think that's going to do? It's going to cause a big problem. So one of the other questions, and you know what, I wanted to say, as I'm looking at the people coming on, Terry, my mom's on there. I see my buddy Chris, Pastor Fowler's joined us. My buddy Mike's on there. We got a lot of people, but man, the outpouring from the mothers, that really excited me, because I really want to continue to promote that mothers that have children that are going through this right now need to be part of this. Not to discount the fathers need to be part of it too, but it just kind of seems in my experience always the mothers that don't necessarily have an addiction problem themselves, that are dealing with children and having to learn about what tough love is, how to not enable and all that. That experience needs to be given to other mothers, because I'm going to tell you, working in the recovery industry, one of the hardest things dealing with, besides the individual that has the addiction problem, is the enabling parents. It's unbelievable sometimes, and I don't get mad or resentful to parents anymore, because I understand that they just love their kids and they just don't know any better, but moms that have learned need to be teaching other moms. So thank you, moms, for being a part of the conversation and being such a support on our Facebook page. But one of the big questions is how do we fight the stigma of people that are getting sober and then trying to integrate back into life and get a job and all that stuff. It seems like there's like this stigma of an addict and they're going to be just problems, so I just don't even want to deal with them, and that just adds to the problem of people trying to get back into the real world or anything. So right. Thoughts on that, ladies?
Well, I think honesty is always the best policy, especially if you're going into the workforce. If you've got a criminal record, if you've got these things following you, if you're living in an institution, you're trying to get back in with society, you're trying to be productive, be honest. Look people in the eye. Don't allow, your past to follow you into there to fill out an application. I mean, guilt, shame, and guilt is it's a natural human emotion. We feel it. Shame is useless. It's an absolute useless emotion. And the longer I carried that with me, addiction, once again, was still winning. Once I got clean and I was carrying shame, I couldn't look people in the eye. I felt like I needed to over-explain or make excuses. It was still winning, and the truth was at that point, I still just wanted to use. I wanted to use. So I came up with all kinds of reasons why I can't. Well, we need to turn that into why we can. And it's not only just me alone. I have a whole support group. We go to my church. My church is supportive. I attend 12-step meetings. Those people are supportive. I can call many people and, get the support I need and get some encouragement. And then, in turn, I give that back. I give it back, and that helps. That helps me to maintain a healthy-minded, be healthy-minded so I can maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Absolutely, honesty.
Yeah. I have found, too, in helping young women to find work that many times prospective employers say, well, that's behind you. If you're really sincere and really want to make a difference, I'll be there to help you. And that is so golden. That is such a gift, and we're so appreciative when somebody is willing to give a person a second chance. It's really a blessing. So.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're getting close to a break here, but I have a feeling that we have a lot of there is a lot to say about people stigmatizing and not wanting to give a chance. But I don't think we give a credit to there is a lot of people. I've run into a lot of people,
yes.
And I think that a lot of people already have that in their mind that I'm stigmatized by the world, and it just as soon as they smell it at an interview, or as soon as they don't get something, instead of just chalking it up to this is regular life experience.
That's right.
People, even that don't have a drug addiction, they have a hard time sometimes finding jobs.
Yeah.
And they just immediately chalk it up to addiction, and it continues to promote that idea when it maybe isn't necessarily there. But I don't want to say that it's not ever there, because I definitely think that there is a stigma, and almost rightly so. I mean, There's a lot to be said about how people that come from this background end up, letting employers down. Okay, we'll come back.
Okay.
It's the High Country's information.
You guys are doing great.
AM 1450 and 96.5.
You seem very natural at this. Yeah.
I think that only comes because I've been a fan of radio my whole life.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too.
I listen
I'm a
to
big
radio
radio
my whole
person.
life.
Yeah, I'm a big radio person.
Talk radio's on my car all day, every day.
That's cool.
Something with this epidemic and the prescription.
Ma'am, can I ask you a favor? Can you put those on top of that pile, which is to your left, my right? Thank you.
Okay. You've got two files here, does it matter?
Yeah, it's fine. I got a bunch of notes all over. I just look at them, they scribble, and then you just add with them.
Okay.
And if the physician doesn't ask, it's important for the person to say,
73.
I have a history of addiction.
Guys, you got a good break here. You got about roughly 5.5, 6 minutes.
Okay.
So you got time.
So what can we do? I'm just throwing this out to you. What can we do about the medical?
How the hell can you make an excuse for making a racist remark when you're messed up? Why would you even tweet?
You know, when she,
Right.
as long as we have this,
I mean, really? That's like putting a loaded gun in your hand and shooting you and then saying, gee, I didn't know. Come on. I just don't think she wanted to do that show. I think she wanted to get off of it. Because she's got enough money.
And who was it? Oprah?
Roseanne Barr.
Roseanne Barr, yeah.
I don't think she wanted to do that show.
She's pretty,
Yeah, she's pretty radical.
and outspoken, yeah.
Yeah,
so-
she's pretty radical on.
even though
I'll tell you what, it's just
It's money.
social
She's doing
media
my money.
really bothers me. I'm not a big fan of it because we have gotten so many people now
how can
that
Have more
are
money.
instantaneous journalists and have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
And there are so many erroneous stories that are popping up. I mean, when Tom Petty died, he's dead. No, he's not dead. He's dead. No, he's not dead. And then the LA
would say
Times
that-
came out. This is the truth in uppercase.
I think
Finally,
that obviously
the truth.
the
Petty
starting and
is
never having a
dead.
problem with
Wow.
it. That's one thing, doctors.
What the?
I think
Really?
taking
If that was my brother or my
out of
dad?
everybody's hand and teaching the
Right.
individual that's in recovery,
Yeah, it can be upsetting to the
that'll be
family
part
and
of what
I
friends.
know, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
going on an
Yeah.
honesty thing. It's like,
okay?
It used to be the news was
I'm
there
not gonna
to
put my
really,
recoveries
be
in
informative
I know.
and really
I
keep
know.
people in the loop.
I've gone to the
and
doctor. I've told them the
give
same thing,
praise
and
where,
they've
where
still
people
given me
were
pills.
being of
I said,
service
I'm
to
a
their
drug addict.
community,
Please don't
not
give
just
me-
all the
still give it to
bad
me.
gossip.
I'm gonna make
And,
you laugh.
I
They had a
had
and to show you
someone
how
that
much
knew I was
PR
going
on the
and
air
checked on
pays
me,
off.
and they didn't even have to ask me. I gave them
He's
the
dead
prescription.
now.
Said,
He's
just-
not.
just
It's not. He's got
throw it away.
lymphoma.
And I waited to give
His
it to
name
them
was Harry
because I wanted them
Volkman,
to
and he was a
see it get thrown
meteorologist.
away. I could have thrown it away and
And
said, I threw it
every
away.
Yeah, but you wanted them,
I-
yeah.
He'd have a little
So
corsage.
if people
And he'd
speak
come
up
out and
and
he'd
tell
say,
the doctor,
before
but
we even get
still,
into the weather,
Michelle
I want to
said,
say
I don't
thank
want
you
it.
for this
She said,
lovely
Doctor,
corsage
she said, I don't
from
want it.
Mrs. So-and-so's class, second
Yeah.
grade or
I
first
think a lot of
grade or
times that
whatever,
after a procedure,
kindergarten class at
people
such
are
and such
pretty
school
like,
in
you know
such
what,
and
I don't
such
need nothing. I
time.
feel all right, but they
And
still have
that
the
won so
medication
many
or whatever
brownie points. I
from
mean, you don't
whatever drug
realize
addiction.
this.
Like even,
He left WGN and went to WBBM.
500
They wound up getting a new GM at BBM. He didn't like Harry. And he was kind of being a jerk to him. Well, he fires Harry. The outrage was so bad
Yeah.
that the TV station brought him back and fired the GM.
Yeah.
That's a true story. But he would do that all the time. It never failed. I mean, God almighty. But it's changed. It's changed so much. And now you don't know what, I mean, like he was talking about talk radio. You don't really know what's legit to even listen to anymore. Look at Rush Limbaugh. He's 99% BS.
Is he
He's all
really?
entertainment.
Yeah.
But he does make some points.
Yeah.
You gotta listen to him. Like when the internet came on. He said, let me ask you this. Who in the hell is governing it? We've just opened up a highway. We have no idea where it's going, but we do know this. All the cuckoos in the world have now been set free.
Right?
Okay?
And-
You've
yeah.
got to listen to him. But he's 99% entertainment. He's all bullshit.
Yeah.
He's all about himself. Oh, look what I broke. You didn't break nothing. What did you break? Golly, I wish we didn't have to carry him. But he's the #1 talk show,
Is
and
he
we
really?
are the only non-iHeart station to have him.
Really?
Yes.
That's,
Wow.
Because we were grandfathered in, because he'd been with us for so many years, that he said, well, they've catered me. I can't do this. I'm going to stay with them. And iHeart said, okay, no problem. Because they own like 99% to our 1%, but that 1%, yeah, it's a moneymaker. People listen to him. I'll never forget the first time I ever heard him was 1988. And I thought my buddy was listening to a comedy tape. And I'm like, what the hell are you listening to? He goes, this dude out of St. Louis. Where? On 5:50 a.m. I'm like, and we're both working in St. Louis at a rival station. I'm like, are you serious? He goes, yeah, man, listen to this. And I mean, it was comedy. To us, it was comedy.
Yeah.
Bud, here we go. You ready?
I'm ready. Okay, we're back. So we're in the middle of talking about stigma and honesty, and Krista and I, for those of you on Facebook Live, you're hearing all the commentary in between breaks. We were having another conversation about opiate pain pill prescription, Krista and I, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I was thinking about some of my early days in recovery, and just briefly, I've had 2 somewhat long-term stints in recovery. I had 6 years of sobriety between 24 and 30, and now I have 7 years of sobriety between 35 and 42. Yes, I'm 42. I know. I don't look it. But anyway.
not even one day over.
But anyway, honesty is the best policy. We had Pastor Fowler, he's saying, giving a thumbs up on Facebook. And it reminded me of some of the dear people that I had met in 12-step rooms down in South Florida. And they had basically instilled that in me also. Your story is your story. Everybody's got stories, and so don't be ashamed of your story. You know what? It's part of who you are now, and you know that you are where you're at. And so I tell people that in my early days of recovery back then, have you guys ever seen that movie with Jim Carrey in it called Yes Man? You ever seen that movie before?
No.
He's having basically the premise of the movie is he's having a hard time with life, and he goes to a motivational speaker. And the guy convinces him to say yes to everything, right?
Okay.
And these people told me honesty and participate, right? So I tell people my first year of recovery when I was 24 years old, I mean, anything anybody asked me to do, I was Jim Carrey in that movie. Hey, come make the coffee. Yes, I will. Go to this meeting. Yes, I will. Go share your story. Yes, I will. Mm-hmm. And it got so addictive, actually, doing that I had an interview. I had gotten a DUI, and I was going in, but the state makes you go through there, and I had to go see a counselor. And the lady is sitting there, and I'm just Mr. Bold in recovery. I was 90 days sober at this point, right? And she says, so can you tell me about your alcohol use? And I said, now or before when I got the DUI? And she goes, well, tell me about when you got the DUI. I was like, well, yeah, I could drink a case of beer a day.
Yeah.
And I was just like telling her every detail about what I was doing. And she's looking at me across and she said, well, sir, the only reason why you're not going into inpatient rehab right now is because you are 90 days sober. I said, yeah, absolutely. And it was just so funny because she was shocked at the honesty I was giving her. I wasn't beating around the bush and everything. But, that was very, very helpful to me. And I still accredit a lot of times. I tell people that may not know this, but when I look at personality tests, I know you shouldn't probably do this, but I've never been diagnosed with this. This has been a conversation going on this week with other people in my life, but I kind of relate to a lot of introverted personality traits, right? I prefer to be by myself. I don't like to talk a lot and everything, but you can't be like that in recovery.
Yeah.
I had to get out of myself. I had to talk and everything like that. And so I kind of tell people that I'm an introvert that's forced to live extroverted,
Right.
And there's a lot to be said about that, And in my experience, back to the stigma, a lot of the time the stigma with addicts, I'm not saying it's not out there, because it is. And to just get that, right off the bat, let's just say that. But I want to say that a lot of problems are almost self-fulfilling prophecies when it comes to people that have had problems in life.
Mm-hmm.
We live. I was reading something recently. We live in some times now that are unlike any other time. I mean, we're using Facebook right now. You have Instagram, all these social media sites, and we live lives of comparison to a degree. I mean, there's always been keeping up with the Joneses, but the Joneses lived on your street. You didn't know the Joneses in every town, in every city, in every part of the world. And you didn't know who you needed to keep up with like you do today. Today, you look on all these, pretty much fake lives. I mean, who puts their dirt on?
real life,
Well, no, there are people that put dirt on Facebook.
And who puts their makeup on?
Right.
At 3:00 in the morning.
This is true.
And people that aren't aware of what's going on, they're just sitting there flipping and comparing themselves all day long to all this stuff that's going on. And what are they saying to themselves? My life doesn't look like that. These people have more than me. They have better lives than me, and that's what they're telling themselves. And then so you get somebody that has an addiction problem, and then they're trying to get back into society, and they have this concept that everybody's got these lives that are these Instagram lives that they don't have, and to get there is going to take forever. So why even try? And so you need to be able to sit in your self-pity per se, and so that's where I think a lot of stigma that's self-fulfilling prophecy. I tried to get a job, but they wouldn't hire me, and I know it's because I had this checkered past. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Did you put another application in? Why bother?
Right.
It almost is like I did one, why bother? And it's like, it's not even reality, man, and this is a conversation that ends up happening a lot of times. I'm going to tell you, I work with a men's program here, and this community it's not that big. I mean, I think we're like 34,000 people, and half of that is the college. But, I have anywhere from 15 to 20 guys in a phase of our program, and they never have problems finding a job.
Yes.
When they want a job,
They get a
the only
job.
guys that don't have jobs are guys that don't
really
change.
want to work. Yeah.
And when I was talking about being honest, now there's different levels of honesty, and then there's ways to be honest. A lot of I'll say this: when I was 24, it was my first time in recovery, and I had some really great people teaching me things like how to act and conduct myself at an interview. I had no idea. I had no idea that I shouldn't wear flip-flops to an interview. I had no idea how to balance a checkbook. I knew how to write a bad check, but I had no idea how to keep the ledger, So things like that, simple things like that. So honesty to a potential employer is going to be a little different than honesty with my sponsor, mentor, whoever it is that I'm confiding in.
Sure.
There's going to be a level of honesty that I want to reach there where I'm not fooling myself or anybody else.
So what you're saying is don't be Jim 90 days clean and sober telling everybody
Right.
those details.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, employers will ask questions, and you need to be honest about questions that they ask, but you don't need to give information they don't ask about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to give people more than they're asking for.
Exactly.
But isn't that true for any interview?
Yes.
Yes.
Isn't it,
Yes.
anybody who's clean and sober goes for a job interview?
Right.
You give what's asked for.
Right.
You don't tell them your whole life story.
Right.
Again, not an addiction specific thing, not an addiction,
Yeah.
just real world things.
It's a real world
Right.
thing.
But again, these all help for self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right term, but I'm using it today. Okay.
Okay. We'll go with that. At Carrie's home, we are working on stuff like that too with the ladies. We touch on those interviews and all. How to communicate. Our communication skills sometimes are lacking when we get clean.
Yeah, and how to dress appropriately. And,
Sure.
Yeah, all those things.
And and in my experience, what's almost a little bit depressing is that I'm just going to always refer to it as the $38 billion machine. That's pumping out. They're needing to present programming to people that are insurance companies are paying money. I'm
Absolutely.
talking about the recovery industry. That's sometimes like $1,000 a day, even a week, and you go and you see all these professional counselors, and they almost encourage the mentality. That makes sense?
Yeah.
You're
with
not
art therapy. Oh well, I made this clay thing. How could I ever want to use again?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not realistic.
Yeah. So, lots to talk about. We are, I promise, going to answer a couple more of these questions that I've been getting. Steve and Renee Martinez, I'm going to get to that question because that actually has a lot to do with what Chris and I were talking. You may have heard our conversation because you're on Facebook Live, but I think it's important to talk about that. And I got a little bit of something I want to say. The question is: it seems like doctors are quick to prescribe meds. How do you know if you really need them or not? And I think it is a very good question that we need to talk about. And we'll be back.
Are among the most misused substances in the U.S. Our pharmacists and
You're
staff
fine.
at all of
You're
our
fine.
laboratory
You could have went a little
locations
longer.
continue
I do this is 30 seconds. Just take your time.
You know what? I forgot that.
Remember, it's all right. Don't worry. I mean, don't rush. You're fine.
Never share medications.
You're doing
and
great.
dispose of your medications.
Great.
Yeah.
We have Dropbox locations
What time is
at
it?
Deerfield and New
11 to
locations
17.
dispose of discontinued narcotics of any type. Do you
This
ever
is
have
fun.
any questions
We're
or
off at
concerns?
11:30, right?
Ask us.
Mhm.
Green Dragon's dedicated to keeping our customers healthy and safe.
So you get to do this. How long do you get to do this, Jim? Is this just going to see how it goes and then go?
Is it every week?
Okay. Good
Yeah.
deal.
If you guys have ideas and whatnot, you know,
Yeah.
think about it.
Definitely get some people listening and going on Facebook and stuff to
Pump it.
support
You can
you.
go on Facebook. Okay, since if you become on, I know you're not on Facebook, but you can invite all of your friends to like this page.
Will you just show me how?
Yeah, you just go. Yeah, I'll show you,
Okay.
and just pass it out, and just get this thing because, like, literally, we have the first show. We had people listening in Chicago, New Jersey, New York, West
Really?
Virginia, Florida, Georgia, and they were all asking questions, and they can literally call in if they wanted to from all those states
Wow, that's amazing.
here in this
Yeah.
in
this little...
in Watauga County. Yeah,
Boom.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So,
With the boss man.
all right, Mom. I hope you have a safe flight. My mom's getting on a plane in Nashville right now.
Oh, yeah, be
is she?
careful.
Yeah, she was here for a couple days.
Oh, how neat.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Sir, you've got 30 seconds. I'm going to get the mics hot. Remember, the mics are hot. There's 10 seconds. I'll give you a countdown.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Ashe County Cheese is the Carolina's oldest cheese plant, producing quality cheese since 1930. See cheese made in the factory viewing room, free of charge. Visit our
I'm so
store
hungry.
and take home a
We can go eat afterward. Well, we could miss today.
All right, welcome back. We were in the middle of addressing this question by Steve and Renee, which was, it seems like doctors are quick to prescribe meds. How do you know if you really need them or not? Do you ladies have anything you want to add to that question or conversation?
Well, I think it's important when you, if you have a procedure and the doctor is offering you pain pills afterward, if you do have an addictive history, to say, I have an addictive history, I really don't want opiates, what else can I take? What other medication can I take? And just like I think it's important for the doctor to ask that question. When discharging a patient from either the hospital or the office after some kind of a procedure, do you have a history? Do you want me to give you opiates?
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're starting to see maybe a change, but it has been terrible.
Right.
I mean, I was telling Krista off air that I have done that. I have gone to doctors, told them my situation, told them not to give me, and they still give them to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are you doing? You know,
Yeah,
I told you
exactly.
not to, please. But what I was saying with Krista, she was saying, you know, we really need to get in doctors' ears, and you know, we really need to stop this. You know, and they really need to become a less popular thing to go to as far as doctors, but. You know, then you're up against the pharmaceutical industry. You know,
That is a very
That's hard.
all-powerful industry that, yeah.
So in my
It really is.
opinion, my opinion is, and this doesn't address people that have never experienced a pain pill or any pill addiction. You know, someone that has never had an addiction. This, my opinion, doesn't address them, but it addresses people that have had addiction. You need to take the responsibility of your recovery off of other people's hands,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. I understand we can point fingers at doctors that I told them when I was an addict and they still gave me pills, but still, what did you do you know, to set yourself up for success in that situation. You know, I mean, I was telling Krista off air that I literally, knowing I was knowing that I was actually, I had a procedure done once on my mouth, and I had to have put in twilight state, and they told me and explained it to me. They said, you're going to feel like you're messed up, and you're going to wake up messed up. And I told them, you can't give me pills. And anyway, I told my accountability partner, and they said, look, we're going to drive you there, and we're going to you give the doctor's permission to give me the paperwork, and I'll take you to get whatever prescriptions. I'll check them, and I'll make sure you go home. And, you know, they basically set me up, helped me be set up for success, you know. And that was a great experience for me because, you know, I kind of took the ability for relapse out by letting somebody know. And this kind of goes back to being honest, you know. I know what I'm getting involved in. You don't ever have to tell someone that has a pill addiction what possibly might happen by going to the doctor.
That's exactly right.
Because we know how to manipulate doctors to get what we want. So we know how doctor systems work.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't have to, this isn't rocket science, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, you know, there is something to say. And, you know, like I said, there have been things that are happening. I think here in North Carolina now, people can only get like 7-day prescriptions now. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but I know that it's becoming more and more common that people are only able to get short prescriptions. That doesn't help, obviously. You can relapse on a 7-day prescription easy, but they're cracking down. Obviously, and all that says is that, you know what, society is acknowledging the issue. Now, again, you always got to, if you're going to be talking about recovery and talking about these problems, you can't alienate people that legitimately need medication. So I want anybody listening right now, to understand that I am not demonizing people that need medication like this. My mom is a caregiver. She takes care of elderly people, and you know, they need medication.
That's right.
Yeah, people with chronic pain.
Chronic pain, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
it has a positive side. You know, there's always a positive and negative, and unfortunately, with prescription drugs, the negative side is just, I mean, it's there and it's blaring. But you know, people live very productive lives that aren't addicts and alcoholics with the aid of a pain pill. You know, it's.
But I will say this to top it all off, and I got a nod of agreement from Mike once when I said this last time. But Americans are wussies.
Okay? I know that's right.
We are wussies, and in my experience working with guys in recovery, we've had dental procedures, we've had all kinds of procedures, and you know what? All you're taking is Advil and Tylenol, my friend. So you think about it right now. And you know what? They're fine.
Yes.
Just fine.
They're just fine with Advil and Tylenol. And I've had that same exact experience. I had a tooth pulled last year, and it's funny. My wife we got married. She never knew me as someone that was in recovery, but we had premarital counseling. And the people that gave us the counseling knew me when I was an active addiction, and they educated my wife. And my wife saw me taking Goodies powders, and she said, "What is that? What is that?" And I said, "Honey, it's just aspirin and Tylenol mixed with some caffeine. That's all it is." "Are you sure?" So my wife even harps on me for taking over the counter medication. So I love my wife. She stays on top of me. The other day I bought some Jamaican ginger ale, strong ginger ale. And she grabbed the bottle from me and was smelling it. She thought, because it was in a bottle, so, you know, we were at my daughter's birthday. Anyway.
Good for her.
Yeah, you know what? If you're in recovery, you better make sure you get somebody. I mean, this is 7 years, and my wife's never seen me take a drink or a drug.
Wow.
And she still is that sensitive to it. So, and thank God for putting her in my life for that. So, but I hope that answers your question about, you know, how do you know when you need? I would say that, you know, when you're having any kind of procedure and whatnot, obviously there are times when it's necessary, but I would lean on the side that a lot of times it's just not necessary. I mean, our bodies have the capacity to deal with extreme amounts of pain, and you know, I don't wish pain on anybody, but you know, sometimes pain leads to maturity and leads to dealing with things in a lot better way, and gives you actually a positive experience going through something like that. I don't wish chronic pain on anybody that needs that kind of pain medication. But you know, one of the other things, as I'm talking about it, pain medication, scientifically proven, causes more pain after a while. Prolonged use of pain medication causes more pain.
Yes.
So it's not a long-term solution for a problem. You know, I had a friend recently that had relapsed, and he was struggling because he has back pain and whatnot. And he was asking me, what do I do? Because I have chronic pain. And I said, look, brother, you're going to have to hear something because it's going to sting. I said, you're 80 pounds overweight. You sit at your house all day long. Of course your back hurts because you don't take care of yourself. Okay, so I would say exhaust all these other avenues first before thinking that you need to take a pill, because that is what is popular in this country. Give me a pill, make it all go away. Yeah. And unfortunately, when it comes to pain, a lot of times that is not the solution, but it is easily, that's what Americans want. So that's what people get. You know, we're in a give me what I want society, and you know, that's the way it works. So.
One thing, there was a person in my life that just, everything that's wrong with you, he would ask, how much water have you drank today? But it's so true. Water is essential. It's essential.
Yeah.
And exercise, you know, eating healthier foods. There's a lot of foods that just cause your body to become inflamed. You know, not healthy. Processed foods are not that healthy. I mean,
well,
just
sugar and stuff. Yeah.
Simple stuff that can reduce the amount of pain that you're actually feeling.
Absolutely. There's so many other things you can go for first without taking the pill. I have a question. I think we have enough time to read the question and discuss a little bit before we get to the next break. But Ryan Elsko, he wrote that he has Crohn's disease. He's had it for 11 years, and doctors have thrown every kind of pill down his throat, knowing that these pills will do more harm than provide solutions. I've learned that this is the lazy, lucrative approach for most doctors, and this is Ryan's opinion, okay? I've been on opiates for almost 11 months, and I'm slowly tapering off. It's been a battle, but with the support of many, it's been made possible. What are some ways to cope with physical and mental issues that derive from disease and addiction, other than meds these doctors prescribe? What steps should one take to ask more of the system so that they can find the best long-term solutions for themselves? Crohn's disease, debilitating. If you've ever known anybody that has it,
yes.
I mean, just a debilitating thing. I know people. My buddy Travis Fowler said, you know, when you have a debilitating thing and you need medication and you have a medication problem, accountability is key. Okay, having someone keep you accountable. You know what? If that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. You know. But the thing about it is mental issues. He said cope with physical and mental issues that derive from disease and addiction, and that's where I kind of wanted to go with the conversation. Obviously, in dealing with people that are trying to get into recovery, trying to get them, you know, get back on their feet, I would say a majority of them come in with mental diagnosis of some kind, or they're on medication, some kind of psychotropic medication, right. You know, and you know. To be honest, when I came to the high country to go to recovery myself, I was on 5. I was on 5 different psychotropic medications. I had been to what they call crisis stabilization units because they thought I was going to harm myself, and I was diagnosed and all kinds of stuff. I have not taken a pill in 6 years. Maybe that's why I am the way I am. I don't know.
Your sanity is in question, sir.
But, you know, I get asked this question a lot. I mean, is my problem a mental illness? Is that what it is? And you know what? Mental illness is starting to get a lot of attention now with school shootings and everything, and I don't want to get into any of that politics. I'm just happy that actually it's starting to get on the rise, because in my opinion, in my experience, what I've seen as far as the what's available for people with mental illness, it's really terrible.
Right.
It really is. Unless you have a lot of money, and I don't even know if you have a lot of money if it's really that good. All I see is the low end of it, and it's just depressing.
The availability,
it's very depressing. Very depressing to see what's available to people out there, and you know, how does that? You know, how do we address that with people that have addictions? We'll be back to discuss that in a minute.
Dude, your show's over.
Oh, yeah,
it's 11:30.
Oh. Sorry about that.
It's your fault. It comes with time. It's interesting what you guys said about manipulating doctors. You know, Elvis Presley actually went out and bought himself a medical book And when he felt like getting a different high, he would look through the book and he'd read what symptoms and what the pill made you feel like.
Sure.
And then he'd go to
And
the
then he
doctor.
would go to the doctor, and of course he's Elvis.
Yeah.
There were no examinations, and he was just written unlimited prescriptions. And that's how he got so filthy sick off these things. And it just, I'll tell you what, the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life, the last appearance he ever made in concert, he was so messed up.
I saw
He
that
couldn't
concert,
remember
too.
songs
Yeah.
he'd been singing for almost 30 years. And I mean, and he's like completely
He
wasted.
was always so, and at the end, swollen. Those
Yes,
pills will make. I mean, they
yes.
started at first.
Yes,
They
and
made
it
me skinny
killed
because I
him.
wouldn't eat. I didn't want to
They
mess up my
ki-
buzz. but
It killed him, man. It
Later
just,
on, it just.
and he
hungry,
started
overcame
eating
for it.
sweets.
Yeah.
All he lived on were sweets, and
Yeah.
that was it. He slept all day, lived all night, and he just completely secluded himself.
Sorry, y'all.
That's
We
why
ran out
his
of
wife
time.
Priscilla left him. She didn't want to make an issue of it in the late